Hi, I'm Teresa Lusk, the host of The Teresa Lusk Show, where we will talk about business, faith, politics, and more. And my next guest is a guest that has got one of the most phenomenal but gut-wrenching stories. And I want to share with you the story of a man named Victor Avila. And Victor is actually a retired supervisory special agent with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for Homeland Security and Investigations under the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. He's actually also seeking the Republican nomination to serve as representative for Texas's 23rd Congressional District. But here's what I really want to share with you. While on official assignment in Mexico, Special Agent Avila suffered multiple gunshot wounds and survived a violent ambush by the Mexican cartels, where Special Agent Jaime Zapata tragically lost his life. Please help me welcome our guest, Victor Avila.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Victor, it is a pleasure to have you here. There are a few reasons why I wanted to have you on. Number one, your story is just gut-wrenching, but it's one of overcoming. So I'm excited to hear what you're going to share with our viewers, but also you're a Latino. Mm-hmm. And right now we have all kinds of, political heat happening in every direction. And as a Latina myself, I said, I have got to have this man on because we need for people to hear the voices of conservative Latinos. So we'll start first of all with your story. Share a little bit about this day that I suppose you're still healing from.
Well, and you mentioned the word resiliency is one that comes to mind because we went through a very traumatic event, and not just myself, the Zapata family, my own family, and a lot of friends. When you go through in a line of duty shooting on February 15th of 2011, Agent Zapata and I were ambushed by Los Zetas Cartel while we were on official assignment in Mexico. And that shooting tragically took the life of Agent Zapata. I survived by the grace of God after being shot 3 times. And so that flipped our life upside down, that of my family and mine. And it technically ended my career as a special agent because of a lot of political things that happened afterwards, fast and furious weapons used against us, a lot of issues with the shooting. And the aftermath of the shooting was sometimes, I think, worse, believe it or not, than the shooting itself, because that continued to happen year after year after year.
Wow. So tell me, this process, obviously, with the shooting, that had to be really hard. You're talking about your partner. You're talking about trauma that happened to you. I'm thankful that you mentioned you had this affected your whole family, but you got through because of your family. So the process of rebuilding, tell me a little bit about that. You can't go through that and not say, this has been a process.
It's been a process. It's been a process of faith. It's been a process of family and close friends. And without them, I wouldn't be here. It might be easily said, but it wasn't easily done. We had some very dark days, dark years after the shooting where you talk about counseling, you talk about PTSD, you talk about physical recovery after being shot 3 times. So all that in accumulation with your job, the stress that it brings on the family, it was something to really, when you look at it, and I wrote about it in the book where I talk a lot about my wife and my family, and the reason why I'm here is because of their support. And I'm glad I had it. I'm thankful for my wife, Claudia, for being there as supportive and seeing the changes that I went through, because she saw me. She knows the what I went through as a law enforcement agent all these years, and that in itself, the stress that this job brings to the family. And she was able to stick by me, and thankfully to God, we're in a much better place.
Amen. And you said something that's very important that I want to touch on, because this is part of the reason why I brought you on as well. You said faith was such a part of this healing, really. Talk to us a little bit, because I think we don't understand that faith is such a big deal. You're running for Congress. Faith has to have a whole lot to do with how you're getting through, how you healed. Tell us a little bit about that process with your faith.
And I'll put it to you this way. One time I was kind of taken aback when someone asked me, during a conference, or I was speaking, and they said, "Why didn't you die?
Mm.
Like, how is it that Agent Zapata was killed after being shot over 100 times? Why didn't you die?" And I was taken aback, and it took me a while to. The answer was very obvious, but sometimes the obvious answer doesn't come to you. But it was a simple answer. It's because that's the way God wanted it.
That's right.
God protected me that day. He decided that he didn't want to take me that day. And this is simple. Because of my faith, it's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
But let me tell you, I went through a lot of identity crisis, and I went through a lot of survivor guilt and all those issues after the shooting that didn't just come to me like I just said it to you right now. It took a lot of process, a while to realize that it was beyond my control. At that point, I easily could have been dead as well, but God decided not to. And so what's the reason? So why? So then you have to deal with that question. Well, maybe it was as simple as just being able to be here to see my kids grow up and to help raise them. Maybe it's more. Maybe it's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's to give back. Maybe it's to continue my public service. Maybe it's to be a voice for those that don't have a voice. And that's what the passion that drives me.
Those are all great insights that you're sharing about why. The truth is we don't have the answer, Victor. We just know that God has you here, and our job is to maximize the days here on the earth. That's it. We get to cash in and maximize, and those are all great reasons. Yes, for your children. Yes, to be a voice. And by the way, thank you for what you have done for our nation. Thank you. I know that I don't even personally know it. All I can do is imagine it. So I have to say thank you for putting your life on the line for people like myself, people here in this nation, which leads me to the next topic that I really kind of want to chime in on a little bit. You are running for Congress. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, since I retired, I've been very heavily active. I'm born and raised on the border from El Paso, Texas, and I lived in San Antonio. The border is my life. I've worked it on both sides, in Mexico. I've worked in Europe. I know borders. I know the politics and the bureaucracies of this government, being worked there for 20 years. I understand the disconnect between Washington, D.C. and what's happening in real life. And I always wanted to and I always said as an employee of the government, why isn't there somebody in Washington, D.C. like me that knows what's going on, making that right decision? Yeah. It's somebody that's so disconnected that sometimes hasn't even been in the territory or ever visited the decision that they're making about. So I want to be that person. I want to bring the true impact, and it goes beyond border security. Obviously, that's my expertise. But Congress, I'm talking about education. I'm talking about healthcare. I'm talking about, I'm a big believer in public safety and national security. If we don't have safety and national security, kind of everything else goes out the window.
Right.
And I think we're at a part in our country that really needs to be dealt with. And that's why I'm running. You're going to see some impacts and some major changes happen when the people put me in there.
This gets turned around, though. It gets turned around, that it is a racism issue. It's not a racism issue. Coming from two Latinos, right. My family came from Mexico. I was born and raised here in the U.S. I love my people, but that's not a racism issue. It's a safety issue. So as a Latino, talk to us a little bit about that so that our viewers, those who are watching and, think, oh, it's a racism. You just don't want these people here. We take words that other politicians and we turn it into total darkness. When the truth is, if we just use our thinking skills, we will know this is about safety.
It's about safety. It's about protection of sovereignty. And thank you for bringing that up because it has nothing to do with that. It doesn't, I'm proud of my heritage. It has nothing to do with that. But I'm born here. I'm born and raised. I'm a Texan. I'm an American citizen. I have been all my life. I play for this team. When I worked in Mexico, there was always sometimes that confusion. Well, what's going on? There is no confusion. I love my heritage and I embrace it in my food, in my music, and my daily life. Yeah. But I'm an American at true at heart, and I'm a patriot, and I want to represent that. And sometimes people confuse that. Well, you don't want people here. As a matter of fact, I'm a big believer in legal immigration. I want people to come here legally, just like my parents did. But what's happening now is out of control. And it's not just the illegal immigration. It's the fentanyl, it's the cartels, it's the national security, it's China. It's all these issues.
Right.
It's a bigger picture than just what's happening at the borders. And I understand the bigger picture, and I want to make a change about it.
That's so good. By the way, have you been accused of wanting to not be a Latino, trying to be white?
Oh, I've gotten so many names, so many names.
So many names. We won't even start talking about that. It's really important, in my opinion, in this season, that people like yourself, people like me, that we begin to use our voice, because we have been put in a box, even previously, politically, that because I'm a Latina, therefore I should vote Democrat, that I should vote with things that don't necessarily line up with my morals. Now, I will say this, to be fair, I believe there are issues on both sides.
Sure.
I'm pretty fair with that. I mean, let's not pretend that the other side gets it right? But I vote to the right, conservative, for a reason. Usually it has to do with faith issues for me. So, as a Latino voice, what can you say to our viewers, not just to our Latino viewers, but although I would love for you to speak to our Latino viewers, but to all viewers about what it's like to be a Hispanic conservative and why it's important for us to use our voice in this season as conservatives?
It's very important, and I think people are realizing how important it is, even more so now, especially on the border. You'd be surprised, the people that I talk to down there, they're the most conservative people, and they're all Hispanic. And they're the ones that are more upset about what's happening. And they're like, this is not fair. This is not the way. We came the legal way. We did it right. And they're the first ones to tell you this is not right. We don't like it. But yes, the conservative movement with the Hispanic faith, it goes hand in hand. And so it is about messaging. It is about education. It is about telling people, listen, what you really stand for are conservative values. That's another reason why I'm running. Because the people of his district realize that the person incumbent there is not doing and following what he said he was going to do. And a lot of it has to do with conservative values. And the people got upset and said, we're going to censure him. And they did. The Republican Party of Texas censured him. So we could say, we want a representative, a voice that truly represents us here.
That's amazing. I think it's really important. Our voice as a Latino community is really starting to have a lot of weight. And I think that we need to use it wisely, educate our people. One of the things I think about is how much our people are bombarded with media that keeps miseducating them. Oh, yeah. Really. I mean, how much effect does that have?
Incredible. The misinformation, the media is a daily occurrence where I feel having to correct it. Or, I'll speak in front of any group. Put me in front of, and my message is the same. The facts that I speak are the same. I'm a logical, real person, and it doesn't change based on who I'm in front of. But the reaction that I get, depending on the group, is very different, because some of these groups have never heard. They might just get one side of it from the media, and they've never heard the other side, and they're like, wait a minute, what are you saying? It almost seems foreign to them. I'm like, no. There is another side, and it's important that we allow people to hear the whole story and make up your own mind. I mean, that's the best part about this country, right? You get to decide, but let's give you the entire information.
Yes, yeah, and I think that's such a needed thing right now. You need all the information. Let's just stop moving on emotion. I noticed that, somebody said that, they're insulting our people, and all of a sudden they run with it, like if that's the gospel truth about something. And I speak to my people, and I want to say, we are smart enough to educate ourselves. We don't need the media to constantly feed us and tell us this is how you should think. So as we wrap up, we have a couple of minutes left. What would you say to someone who has a desire to pursue a high-level position that's going to influence the country? And then I want to mention your book real quick, because I think it's a phenomenal story.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm a big believer in in local politics, and I think that people should be very involved locally. I know I'm running for U.S. Congress because I think that's where I bring the biggest impact. Because the issue that I'm running is a national issue.
Sure.
The country needs change, but people, it's important that you get involved in your community. Who represents you on your neighborhood, your block? Do you know what their name is? Who's the city council representative, the school board, your county commissioner? These are the individuals that are making decisions that affect your daily life in where you live. Get involved, go to a meeting, see what's going on. And that would really open your eyes and see. You'd be surprised what you learn at these meetings when you go there once a month. And it's important to be involved with that. And it doesn't take much, but it at least will make you aware of what's going on. And now you have a voice and an input in that community. And that's where it starts, right there in your local community.
Great wisdom, Victor. Thank you so much. I want to talk about your book just real quickly. It's Agent Under Fire. Intense.
It pretty is.
Intense. I mean, I was just, even watching the documentary, I was thinking, oh my goodness, this story has to get out there. Where can people get your book, and how can they get a hold of you?
You could go to agentunderfirebook.com. You could also visit right now victoravilaforcongress.com, and I welcome your support there. This book, you'll go through some emotions. You're going to really get to know me. It's got my voice coming through there. Not only my career, obviously there's explicit explanation of the shooting in Mexico. And then what I did at the very end is I wanted people to know that what I know about border security, and you will get a very good understanding about the border, the wall, asylum, sanctuary cities, things that are occurring right now. You'll get a good grasp of at least, again, become aware in what's going on.
How exciting. Thank you so very much. You have been such a blessing. God bless you on what you're doing. I pray that the Lord would open up the door for you and that you would walk through it and make a change and a difference. Because if God called you to this, you can't help but to accomplish it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Gen X, and I cannot think of anything more boring than worrying about somebody's politics when I'm meeting them to date. But that seems to be kind of it's a new thing. Is this something all generations are doing, or are there differences amongst the various age groups?
Well, I think it's definitely catching up with every age group. I think maybe the younger generations, I think they're probably a little bit more like Gen Zs. They're a little less high strung on that necessarily like the younger ones. But, you know, it is starting to be seen across the generations. It's become such an identity for people individually rather than just something that we use politics, you know, to move the country in a certain direction. So it's getting pretty intense out there when it comes to dating.
Well, welcome back to our Exec You Coach segment. This is where I take the time to give you some principles and wisdom on how you can make your life better. Now, listen, dating is an issue today with our political climate. Yes, there are people out there who, when you look at their profiles for dating, they're actually saying, if you follow this politician, don't even bother. It's comical, y'all. It's really funny, but hey, it's real. It's happening. So there is a article out there, a study out there that it's talking about how you vote is actually breaking the deal of dating. So what do you say? Do you care about if your future boyfriend, girlfriend, or spouse votes differently than you? Well, here's some things I want to leave you with regarding this. Number one, we do have to remember that politics are a tool. Well, at least that's how it used to be. But now it's starting to create a huge divide. Now we're really saying, hey, you vote this way. That means that you are completely sick in the head and broken. And I mean, it becomes something really intense. So what I have to ask you is this. Do you believe that you can get past the way that your future boyfriend or girlfriend or what have you votes? If you cannot get past how they vote, then that's going to be something really important for you. Imagine this. He or she comes home and they say, honey, I'm home and I voted, you choose. And all of a sudden, your anger rises, you're angry, you're saying, this marriage is over. If that is how strongly you feel about the way that your future spouse or what have you is voting, then you really need to make sure that you don't choose someone or choose to date someone who votes opposite as you. This is not something that I am happy to say, don't get me wrong. It's just where we are in our nation. If it's going to cause issues in your marriage because of the way that they voted, well, that's going to be an issue for you. So you have to ask yourself, can I get past their voting choice? Also, is this a moral issue? Some people think, hey, this is not about morals. This is just that I'm not going to vote for the buffoon that's running on the opposite side. Well, but I have to ask you, do you believe that the way somebody votes actually lines up with their morals? If so, you may have to take a hard pause on considering voting outside of the party that you vote in. Once again, not my preference, not something that I'm promoting. I'm for unity, but I am for standing for what you believe. So you have to stick with that. And then remember this, dating has its battles, so choose wisely. In today's world, today's climate of just all kinds of crazy things being normalized, it's harder to find that person that you might want to spend the rest of your life with. So remember, my friends, that there are things that are going on politically. All you have to do is choose if that's what you want to do. And that is your segment for ExecuCoach. Did you get a copy of my book, Winning Favor with People God's Way? 10 Principles that will change your life and those around you? Don't forget to grab your copy if you want to learn how to be a leader at a next level and win favor with people. Grab your copy wherever books are sold online. Hey, I'm your conservative Latina bringing you some quick news today. Did you know that only 2 to 3% of Latinos refer or identify to themselves as Latinx? Ask a Latina. I actually identify as American and then Latina. So I wanted you to know that not everybody is okay with the titles that are being given out there. We are good with being Latinas and Latinos. Guess what? I even asked some friends, what do you think about the term Latinx? You know what I got? Eye rolling. I got eye rolling. So be aware of that as you identify people out there. There are still some differences in what is being pushed. Also, did you know that NPR had an article that came out back in 2022 stating that Democrats are slowly, little by little, losing the Latino vote? Well, that's because Latinos are starting to empower themselves through education. They're starting to see the results of what's really going on in our nation. So if you want to reach the Latino community, remember, being honest, being able to compare results with rhetoric is very important. And that's your news from your conservative Latina today. Hey, so recently I had the opportunity to speak at a Carrie Lake event. It was a wonderful opportunity. And as I was talking to the attendees of the event, one of the things that I realized was we had a room full of people who said they had faith in their life. They believed in God. And so that was a big deal to them. So I began to ask, clap your hands if you pray for your nation. And people begin clapping their hands and they're really excited. And so I then asked them, do you pray for your state? Again, clapping began and they were just excited about, what it was that they were representing at that moment. Yes, I'm a faith person. I believe in praying for my state and my nation. But when I asked, do you pray for your city? The claps were almost non-existent. Let me tell you something, friends. We are in a time where bringing in your faith to even your city is a big deal. We as Americans, this is where faith meets politics, where we have to understand that there is a local spiritual war really going on, even for your city. All you have to do is think about, how are people acting and reacting as they're choosing board members or, city council, city mayor? Those positions are absolutely important for your city. It is in your city where you are living your life, spending your money, raising your children, going out for a walk. It is in your city that things are happening. Yes, things are important as a state, things are important as a nation, but I'm telling you that we have got to start honing in as people of faith and cause the faith to meet the politics as we pray for our cities. So I leave you with this. Will you make a commitment to begin to pray for your city, pray for your mayors, pray for those who are on the school board, pray for city council, pray for people who make decisions for the very place where you reside? My friends, that is our responsibility as faith people. So I leave you with that in our segment where faith meets politics. I am Teresa Lusk. God bless you.